Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, good morning and welcome to the 5th Slovenia Business Bridge Investment and Development Conference, Innovation, Cooperation and Trust, the Path to Success. We are about to start the AmCham Business Breakfast, Family Business, Investment and Trust, Eternal Love or Just a Fling. Please give a warm welcome to our panel chair, Jaka Repanšek, founder of Republis and co-chair of the AmCham Intellectual Property Committee.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'll kindly ask you to sit down in the back if possible so we can start. All right, let's start then. Your Excellencies, dear Minister Počivalšek, dear ladies and gentlemen, dobro jutro and welcome to Slovenia Business Bridge 2019. It is an honor to be with such a great audience today. I think it's one of the largest we've had in a long time. Before we continue with our roundtable on family-oriented businesses, it is my honor to invite Mrs. Ajša Vodnik, General Director of AmCham Slovenia and Vice President of AmChams in Europe, to present us with her welcome address.
So, good morning. We've been preparing for this day for a long time, so I need to admit that we are excited. Because we know that in front of us there are 2 days of great networking, making new ties, business and personal, that will listen to outstanding speakers, that will have opportunity to learn from the best, and above all, what we'll do, we'll create new opportunities, what AmCham is all about, and we'll try to bring together two worlds that sometimes seem impossible to bring, multinational companies and SMEs. But we know that the future lies in that, and that it's really important that we know how to communicate and that we know how to do business. And that's why I would really like to thank to all of our supporters and co-organizers. So allow me to do so. And I would really like to say a big thank you to Public Agency Spirit for the great support, and of course also the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. I would also like to say a big thank you to our premium trusted partners, Microsoft, and of course to the others that support us, that is Enterprise Investors, Ineor, Nova KBM, partners Alfi, KPMG, Mercedes-Benz, Trimo, Ulcher and Partneri. And for this business breakfast that we'll have as an opening event of the 5th conference that is really becoming bigger and bigger in size, but also in energy, I would like to also say a big thank you to Goodyear. And what they always want to say is that winter is approaching, so you know where to buy tires. But without further ado, it's my really honor and pleasure that I can invite Mr. Zdravko Počivalšek, Ministry of the Economic Development and Technology, to really open the conference. Minister, najlepša hvala, da ste sprejeli povabilo in da ste z nami.
Dobrodošli. Ambassador of the United States of America, Your Excellency Linda C. Blanchard, Director of AmCham Slovenia, Ms. Aisha Vodnik, dear guests, good morning and welcome. Dobro jutro in dobrodošli. First, allow me to thank you for inviting me and to talk about family entrepreneurship. Namely, family business is very important in Slovenia. According to many studies, almost 83% of Slovenian businesses, particularly micro and small enterprises, are family businesses. I would like to highlight two characteristics of family businesses. Firstly, both management and employees have a great sense of belonging to enterprise. Secondly, entrepreneurial skills and experiences are passed down from generation to generation. Firstly, I would like to touch upon belonging of employees to family businesses. Many practitioners in this area, not that family entrepreneurs, becoming more and more confident, they increasingly identify with them with the term family business. The commitment of the management and employees is important for achieving better business operations, increased competitiveness, dedication to business and more effective inclusion in global value chains. Let me say a few words about the importance of passing entrepreneurial skills and experience down from generation to generation. In 2016, 8,000 businesses with at least one employee stopped operating and had no successor. This was a considerable loss of knowledge and experience. In order to change this trend, our ministry adopted special measures to promote the transfer of ownership of family business. This month, the Slovene Enterprise Fund will publish a public call for applications for an ownership transfer vouchers, and this means that throughout the year business will be able to quickly and easily acquire funds for all three stages of ownership transfer, from the preparation of all family members to the technical implementation of ownership transfer and the improvement of competences of young entrepreneur taking over the family business. As you know, in recent years, Slovenia has made great efforts to internationalize its economy. Let me particularly highlight the new Investment Promotion Act. The aim of the act is to stimulate domestic and foreign investment that will achieve higher added value per employee. Slovenia must also diversify its export to markets outside Europe and include more small and medium-sized enterprises. I see great potential for the future in this segment of enterprises to which many family businesses belong. Through Spirit Slovenia and the Slovene Enterprise Fund, the Ministry helps businesses to enter foreign markets and at various development stages of export operations. Finally, we must not forget digitalization and innovation. Studies show that digitally proactive businesses are 10 times more successful than businesses of the same type without digital technologies. Therefore, the Ministry drafted the Digitalization and Digital Transformation Program and until 2023 allocated 33 million euros for digitalization. The government also stimulates business investments in research and development. To this end, it provides 100% tax relief and soft loans for research and development, and financial support for smart digitalization projects, innovation, incubators, as well as pilot and demonstration projects. Dear guests, I believe that Slovenia family businesses have great unused potential. It's my hope that together we realize it. As for today and tomorrow, I wish you a successful and enjoyable event. Thank you. Hvala.
Thank you, Minister Počivalšek, for your opening remarks. Let's please take a moment now for presentation of our partner, Goodyear Dunlop Sava Tires. And I think you've seen it, a little envelope of appreciation on your tables from our sponsor, please.
Start something great today. Go Goodyear.
Thank you very much, Goodyear Dunlop Sava Tires. Before we continue, I am honored to greet among us Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the United States to Slovenia, Ms. Linda C. Blanchard. Ms. Blanchard, welcome and thank you for being with us. I think you're going to get a microphone now because I have a question for you. Ambassador Blanchard, you have a family business background, and I am positive that your business experience will be a strong motivator during your term as ambassador to Slovenia. I know you've been in Slovenia for a rather short time now. However, could you share with us your first impressions on Slovenian economy, business sector, and perspectives of our cooperation in the future, please?
Certainly, thank you. Dobro jutro, and I'll look forward to learning the Slovenian language even more. As ambassador, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to be a host for this event as well. We didn't have a video like that, but it's certainly impressive, and I look forward to working closely with Goodyear as well. But for ambassador for the U.S., I see myself as a connector, and that's easy coming from the South. We like to connect people to people, and I look forward to that, working with all the businesses in Slovenia as a connector. And the U.S. is Slovenia's third largest investment in Slovenia, $2 billion. And with this partnership, I encourage any type investment so we can double down on the $2 billion is my goal. And I think that's an easy goal. My 5 weeks in Slovenia, I've noticed that the Slovenian people are very innovative and creative and hard workers. You have an amazing work ethic. So you're a perfect partner for any country, and I would encourage you to look to the U.S. and strive to come abroad and work with us in the U.S., as well as I will encourage U.S. partners to partner in Slovenia in any business atmosphere, because when I was last week in your innovation awards ceremony, I was amazed with the different businesses that had just recently popped out of Slovenia, and it was very encouraging, and I'm hopeful to bring this partnership to a bigger and better capability, and want to see you in the U.S., and I realize that you have a very close connection to the U.S., and when my family and I came back yesterday into Slovenia, we already feel like this is home. And when we arrived across the border, we all said, welcome home. And thank you for making us feel so welcomed. And I look forward to any and every business partnership in this room. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Blanchard. Thank you very much for your words. It is now my honor to introduce our distinguished panelists and welcome you to the podium. Mr. Chris Weiler, President and Chief Executive Officer of Weiler Corporation. Welcome. Mr. Gregory Ingram, Member of Supervisory Board at KGAL. Welcome. Anywhere you want. This one is for me. Mr. Tomislav Perovic, Senior Advisor for SEE Region at Rothschild & Company. Welcome. And last but not least, our own Mr. Micha Žerko, President of the Management Board at SRC. Micha, welcome. You know, when I was thinking of a good example of a family-owned business with true values and successful transformation through time, I could use any good example, and there are many around us. But I chose the one I know the best, my American family from Springfield, Missouri. They had not only encompassed everything in theory and practice that is right and true and perspective about family-owned enterprises, but truly lived and still live their founding values. McCreary Brothers Drug Company was started in Springfield, Missouri in 1924 and grew to a considerable pharmaceutical supply corporation serving 7 states across the Midwest. The company has grown through 4 generations of the McQuarrie family, facing and surviving all the challenges we'll discuss today: expansion, financial freedom, efficiency, family values, and above all, responsibility to your employees and your community. But just like every family-owned business, it was time to decide how to move on. Pharmaceutical market was consolidating, and the only possible way forward was to integrate with someone bigger. So when the day came when it was time to sell the company, the McQuarrie brothers were very clear in their statement. It is not really a celebratory type situation for us. We've been in business for 84 years, and we expect it to be in business for another 84 years. It is kind of a bittersweet thing. It was done with a heavy heart. Core values remained, and the family support for sports and philanthropic endeavors continues on into the family's 5th generation. This Saturday, we're all gathering in Springfield to open family's own history museum on the main square, a new landmark of Springfield and a token of appreciation of once a family business to their community. Mr. Weiler, I'll start with you with this introduction of my experience of a family-owned business, and of course you also come from a family-owned business, so you are the 3rd generation in that company. USA has huge family-owned corporations, something we in Europe usually don't associate with family business size. Just look, for example, at Mars Incorporated, a good example of a huge globalized family business. Now, family business is a successful model in USA, and your company is a fine example. But what are the key challenges for growth and expansion of family business when that question comes up in your business? Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, and it's an honor to be here today. Weiler Abrasives is actually an example of what we call the American dream story. So my grandfather immigrated from Germany and started a business in his basement, and And here we are today, 75 years later, and I have the honor of sitting in front of you. One of the statistics of family businesses is something around 95% fail in the third generation. And so coming into the business as a third generation member, I was very aware of this statistic. And initially I thought this was because the third generation becomes entitled or somehow lazy. And I thought, well, that won't happen to me. And I realized that that may be true sometimes, but what I really think is this is what causes families, businesses to fail or not to succeed for multiple generations is not challenging and innovating on their business model. So I think business models have around a three-generation sustainability, and so the challenge to have multi-generational family businesses is really, for me, I think it's about challenging and reinventing the business model, making sure that you don't get too comfortable in how you do it.
And how do you tackle that question, that problem, that challenge, as you said, a challenge, not a problem, in your family business? Do you rely on outsourcing? Is it hard to introduce management that is not a member of the family? How do you tackle those issues now in the third generation?
It is, for me, it is all about the customer and paying attention to what are the customer needs and how is the market changing. I think we're all guilty of this in business. We become internally focused. We're always looking to improve process, to improve efficiency within the organization. And this can sometimes cause you to make assumptions that our customers are always going to need the same thing they always have had. And I think the answer to innovation is always about understanding markets and your customers and how their needs are changing. And that's easy to say, and honestly quite hard to do. It's really about listening and spending time listening to your customers.
Listening to your customers. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Gregory, we had a great discussion yesterday. I'm really sorry you had to learn about the bankruptcy of our national air carrier the way you did, but fortunately you had a good way to come to Slovenia, much easier than other people, I think. It is really not the topic today, but I will use it as a little bit of a lead, because you were bidding also for that company when it was privatized many years ago, and you didn't make it, even though you had experience in aviation business. The key to my question is experience in knowing the business. So how important is it for an investment company such as yours to have clear understanding and experience of the business, but not only the business, also of the values of the family corporation, company you're entering into as an investor? How important is that?
Sure. Hi, good morning to all. Maybe first a few thoughts, a few words to the employees of Adriaz and their families, because it's a catastrophe. Long company, which I think is a public infrastructure of the country. It's sad, and I just want to think about them who lost their job through the bankruptcy, their families, how it can impact, and this we should keep it in mind, because that's part of values. So running a business, yeah, it's not easy. It's a lot of work every day, especially if you're family-owned. I think to reconcile the governance, management, shareholders, you need to take the long-term view. You want to be focused on your clients, your customers, innovation, the market. But as we're living in societies, in France, in the States, or in Slovenia, or in Germany, very often those last few years, we've lost track of who we are and who we need to care about. And we need to care about our employees. We need to care about the values that we're conveying in our businesses. And it's not necessarily the profit and loss statement at the end of the year or the bonus of the management. It's also to make sure that your employees across the board of the company are taken care of. Sometimes you take decisions, investment decisions, not based on the P&L, but based on thinking in 5 years, 10 years. Why? Because you want to be inclusive of everyone. If in your ecosystem, domestically, everything is working well, everyone is taking care of everyone, and building a long-term sustainable model, you will be stronger, the economy, the companies, the entrepreneurs. So those values, it's very difficult to percolate in an organization. It's a daily work. You need to choose the right people. You need to communicate actively. And in the world which is changing so fast to the last 10 to 15 years, it's very difficult to reconcile the pressure of the market, the pressure of the customers, and make this a daily life for your company. So it's many thoughts to think, and there is different models. What I've seen in Slovenia since a few years, through a partnership or colleagues, I've seen small enterprise, medium-sized enterprise, or large enterprise. What I've seen is people of quality, very well educated, driven, and I see a lot of similarities between Germany and Slovenia. You can have people at a table with different views, but they engage, they're talking, different stakeholders. People still have these memories, and maybe it's because Slovenia and the region had some major event less than 25, 30 years, you still have the memory, maybe as younger people. In France, when I'm thinking about it, our last social country memory, that was the Second World War. So the younger generation, they're forgetting those values, it doesn't pass on from generation to generation. It's a challenge for all of us, but every day we're trying to make it a little bit better. I think it's critical for larger companies, multinational, which are getting involved in business, to have knowledge, expertise in this area. It's not just getting a couple of people in a room and pulling some expertise. I mean, it takes time to build businesses. There is success, there is failure. It's really about the journey. And it's critical to have the right people, the right know-how in your company. In our company in Germany, I mean, people are in our company for 20 years, 25 years. Our CEO has been there for 26 years. You need to give those opportunities to people to grow within the organization and defend social values. And this across the board, it's disappearing in France, in Germany, as well as in the States, because I'm American as well, not only French. I remember America in the 90s, and you had still those people, depression kids. They were like peers. They were making sure that things were not getting out of hand. There was accountability. And you see that all this is disappearing. It's very short term. Like a good friend that I saw last week, who's in the attendance, Mr. Irving. Our societies are no longer governed by common sense or law, but more by public opinion. And that's where we need to take a step back, think about the future and what we want to put in place and leave for our children. We're all stakeholders.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you, too. Thank you very much for your introductory thoughts. Mr. Perovic, you have extensive experience in advising family-owned businesses, especially in our region. And there is a transformation of family-owned businesses underway in our region, something we experienced, for example, in Germany in the 70s, when first generation of post-war parents transferred their companies to the next generation. Something similar is happening in our region now. Surprisingly, a huge percentage of those companies in Germany in the 70s didn't survive that transition. Why is that? And what can family businesses in Slovenia and the region learn for that German experience from the 70s?
Yeah, thanks. Germany is a very good example, and having advised a number of corporates in Southeast Europe, we've obviously did the analysis of what happened there, because one of the benefits of being a late bloomer is that you have the experience of the others. We drilled down to understand what were the core principles and why the transformation failed and what could be learned from that point when advising the businesses here to make it more of a success. And Germany is very relatable to Slovenia case, so that's probably the best example because of the structure of the industries, of the distribution in the small communities, so it's a better example than most of the rest. And what we found out is that transformation failed predominantly for psychological reasons. I mean, that was a generation gap, that was founders' strength and driving force that brought the company to the point when it needed the transformation. It's very difficult from that point, once you succeed something and once you know that the driving forces that brought you to that point might not be sufficient for tomorrow, to find the vulnerability spot in you and to open a dialogue with yourself and with the family to ensure that you're gonna make it. Governments and especially Bavaria government tried to impose some of the sovereign advisory on top because those industries became exceptionally important. BMW, for example, is a family-owned business, and at a certain point in time, it did matter a whole lot for old Bavaria. But it all failed because what we've realized, it takes a peer to come to these founders and start talking to them. Advisors are not going to do it. Somebody who's going to talk about structuring the business is not going to do it. New management is not likely to do it, but only the peers that been there, that done it, that found the vulnerability in themselves, opened up the possibility. And what Germany did is created a non-governmental organization. It was the founders of businesses that managed the transformation and exited, and they've created an NGO, then advised for free to the rest of the family-owned businesses, because the topics are difficult to handle for the founders. I mean, all of the people who've made exceptional business cases, they had the driving force that it's based a bit on the vanity, and it brought them to the position of being somewhere. So going backwards and trying to find out that you're mortal, that you might find somebody better for transformation, it's a difficult task for everybody. And now with the digital transformation, generational gaps might even get bigger than it used to be in the 70s. So that's additional layer.
There's no challenge also now for transfer.
And absolutely.
In the same field. But Micha, you are an example of a successful transformation. I may underline.
One would argue, but
of course. You were working. Well, I'll start a question a little bit different. You were working elsewhere before deciding to join your father in the family company. Was it hard for him to pursue you to come to join him and take over the company? And I know you're asked this question all the time. How hard and how challenging is this generational change on your example and in similar companies you see around you?
First of all, how much time do I have? But
you see the time right there on the screen.
Okay. I'll speak fast. Yeah, I've made it extremely difficult for my father to have me back, but it's because I'm second generation, but so you grow up with the company. I was 7 when the company was founded, and it was kind of like having a little sister, because the company was there at our breakfast table, dinner, all the holidays, anniversaries. So basically it becomes a part of you. But then obviously you become a teenager and you start rebelling against your father, against your family, and you want to do things on your own, which I think is good. And actually, had I not done that, had I not left and pursued my own ambitions for a while, I would never be able to come back and take it over, because it's difficult emotionally, because everyone's looking at you, and it's kind of like a monarchy, You've inherited this, but is it based on merit, or is it just based on, flesh and blood? You were born in the right family. So, and you can't help but wonder, even yourself, do I deserve this? So I think it's really difficult, or really important, that you actually leave and prove to yourself, more to yourself than anyone else, but you need to prove it to yourself that you could have made it on your own. And then you're ready to come back, and then you're ready to take over. And also, I had a professor from IMD who studies family businesses. He had a great piece of advice for business owners before letting their kids run the business. He said, have them make their mistakes elsewhere.
Okay, so you didn't make them elsewhere, but still you learned a lot.
Oh, I made so many.
All right. How hard it is for first generation, in this case your father, to let go? Let go. How often does he come back? We talked about this also before. How hard it is to let go?
I think I was lucky. And I think, unfortunately he's not here to hear me out, but I say this to his face as well. I think it worked to my advantage that he's lazy. Literally, we had about a 4-year gap when we were both present in a company, when I knew that I was going to take over and he knew that I was going to take over, and people in the company knew. But then, I still remember in October 2010, he got his management team together and he said, from this day forward, all questions related to the company, here's your guy, I'm off. And then he left. and then in January, officially, he retired. So, but I have many friends who come from family businesses, and they have had difficult times with the fathers, with the founders who just wouldn't let go, and that was frustrating. And I have so many stories from that part of the
And you come from IT business, which is a rapidly evolving, developing, fast-changing sector. So all of those challenges, as mentioned before, are even more, I would say,
Sure.
visible.
Also, I mean, so the time when we chose to do the handover was actually the financial crisis in Slovenia was at its peak at the time. So even at that time, it was really vital that there was only one head on top of this institution, because we had to make some really difficult decisions. I mean, we had to let go of 200 people, and and these were also some people who were very close to my father or to me, and it would have been difficult. I mean, it would have been difficult for him as well to do it. So I think it was great. He ran the company while it was successful. I almost ran it into the ground and then built it back.
Mika, thank you very much. Our screen is announcing our next speaker today, and I would like to kindly invite Mr. Matej Zavrl, CEO of Goodyear Dunlop Sava Tires, to present us with his keynote address. I will ask a question, and then maybe just kind of a lead to your address. Goodyear is a large global corporation. However, its business is very much associated with smaller, often family-owned businesses. How does cooperation between large multinational company and family-owned business work in practice? What are key challenges in translating corporate and business communication, please?
Oh, thanks. Your Excellency, dear guests, Jaka, thank you for the very interesting question. So, indeed, Goodyear and our competitors are engaged in a very dynamic environment, which is good. But you might not know that family business is actually the mainstream when we talk about B2B and the B2C. So in Central and Eastern Europe, family businesses are actually our extended arm when we talk a national, regional distribution, and for sure when we talk about services. So majority of point of sales are managed by family business. How we see it? A lot of passion, challenging the status quo, asking for fast decisions, and you need to be ready. Actually, the takeaway point of today is you will never get bored by dealing with the family businesses. They wake up early, they don't use a lot of PowerPoints, and they are challenging all what you might think it's carved into the stone, but it's not true. So they are actually driving the progress by pushing for the change. And we as a Goodyear are ready to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zavrl. It's also my honor to invite Mr. Miran Kozjek, CEO of Trivalentene, to present us with his keynote address, and I will try to give you a lead also, Mr. Kozjek, about the question, about your speech. Trivalentene is a successful company and a good example of successful transformation for a military supplier founded in 1965 to a modern high-tech company privatized by management in 1993. You have since ran the company as a family business, in a way, the management style, and came to a new milestone recently, being acquired by a financial investor here in Slovenia. When and why did you decide it is time for a new chapter for your company? Mr. Kozjek, please.
Okay. Thank you, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we start thinking about selling the company around 4 or 5 years ago because co-owners of the company are getting old, including me. So we need to think about what will be after we will leave the company. And second thing, I need to say that our company was not, let's say, purely, let's say, family business. The owners were not related. Only my daughter is now working in the company. So the other daughters and son, they decided to go somewhere else and so on. But as I said, 4 or 5 years ago, we started thinking about that, and we got some, let's say, good offers and so on. The main goal of this decision was to make this company, let's say, 1 or 2 steps higher. Maybe one common thing about the family business is that, you know, this, for the small companies I'm talking about, the growth is the problem, you know. Instead of thinking about the profit and family and company growth and so on, we rather think about, let's say, having good time working, make the customer satisfactions and so on and so on. You know, with new owners and new management team and so on, one of the goals was to bring the company 1 or 2 levels up. I think that let's say our program, our products are good and ready to be, let's say, bring up a little bit more. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Koziak. You surprised me. I thought you're going to be a minute or 2 longer, but thank you very much because we are running quite tight on time. Mr. Weiler, if I may come back to you now. Now, we can sort of summarize 5 core values of a family business, or we could summarize them into quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and above all, financial freedom to make our own decisions, unrestricted by motivation of others. How hard is it for a family business to remain true to its core values through its lifespan, again, coming to a 3rd generation family business company?
I think that's a great question, and because the answer is it's challenging. The values of a company when they start, you know, really come from the founder, and they're not stated; they're just lived. And as you join a small company, it's just clear because the founder continues to drive those values. As a family business grows and expands through generations, and new generations come in, and in our case, the company scales globally, it can no longer be this assumed thing. So we've done a lot of work to define what are our values as a business, and more importantly, how do they translate into behaviors? Because, you know, values are how you live, it's how you act. And we spend a lot of time talking about them and making them clear so that the global family business at this point all operates in a consistent manner that ultimately is rooted in our, you know, in our founders, my grandfather's personal values.
Mm-hmm. And how often and how strongly do you need to adjust those values as time goes on and generations change? I know your grandfather founded the foundation values, but values do change in this world, don't they? Yeah. We're in 21st century now.
Yes, of course. And just as I was saying that, you know, innovation and focusing on customer is the key to business and business model longevity. The way in which strategy is executed is based on how people act. And so it becomes a very important and challenging question of looking at the business's mission and values, and are they consistent with how the business should act going forward. And the challenging part of that is what are those true core values that just can't change because it defines who you are as a business, but there are other aspects that perhaps values and behaviors that got you to this place, but now need to be appreciated and in a way put down, put aside, and new values brought in to continue the business's journey.
And again, when you introduce new values and new business models, as you grow, as you develop and come to the fourth generation, et cetera, how do you do it? How much do you rely on expert consulting, on bringing in management which is not family members, as I also asked or mentioned before at our introduction?
Yeah, that's absolutely part of the process. And what I would say is it's a process of starting with what is it that the organization needs to do to meet its customers' needs and changing markets? How does that translate into strategy? And then what is the leadership strategy that connects to executing the strategy? And this is connected to values. And so this is where outside consultants can be critical to have the right conversations and to actually, in a way, challenge the status quo and help organizations recognize, yeah, you know, I think it's time for us to maybe put this aspect of our values aside and introduce this new aspect.
Will a non-family member ever be CEO of your company?
Absolutely. I think that's an example of maybe one of the values, right? It is, so we have, this now goes to family values, ownership values, and one of them is that we have to cut our teeth, work outside the business before at least moving into an executive role in the business, and that, at least for me, I say, you know, I will always be a Weiler, I will always be a member of the family, but I don't have a right to be the senior leader of the organization. I have to earn that every day, as every other executive needs to. And so I think it's very important that I approach my work as a professional manager and not assume, and certainly not have any of my children assume that they will just move into the business, that this is something that needs to be earned.
Last but not least, do you have a family constitution in your company?
Yes, we do.
You do? Yeah. When did you draft it? Which generation drafted it?
Second generation drafted it, and it's something we look at every 5 years or so.
Every 5 years. Do you update or upgrade the family constitution in your company?
Yeah, sure.
Micha, do you have a family constitution? No. Family constitutions are a big thing now in Slovenia. I mean, I know quite some people in this hall that can help you draft it, actually. Are you considering having a family constitution?
Of course. I mean, as soon as there are more people involved, you need a code of conduct, right? So, yes, to be brief, but actually, you know, before, first I still need to make kids, and then I need to make enough in order, and I don't have any siblings, so now I mean, if I write the Constitution now, it's for myself, you know, or maybe I can have my wife draft it.
All right. You know,
slip something in that's...
More brothers and sisters, longer Constitution, less brothers and sisters, shorter Constitution. Maybe you can learn from the Brits. The Brits have an oral Constitution, so maybe you should have an oral family Constitution. I'm joking. Of course, it's good to have a written one. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you in a second. But let me continue, Gregory. And Gregory, as you said yesterday, I'll call you Gregory. So hope it's not too informal. Gregory, how does entry of a financial investor affect the structure, the corporate governance of a family business? Now, Trivalentina, as an example, is selling, I think, 100% share, a complete withdrawal of the family. My American family sold 100% share. A lot of family businesses sell a portion of their business share. From your perspective, how does the structure and corporate governance change when that happens?
Maybe there are two models. There is companies that just want to get out, and then investors come in, private equity style or not, with different agenda, and then they structure the company in a very governance-driven, accountability, profitability, which becomes a little bit, in some cases, inhuman. And I can recall back in the 90s, before we used to speak about private equity, two models, France and Germany. At that time, France and Germany had the same Mittelstand capital or Mittelstand companies. It was exactly the same level, same performance, with a key medium-sized enterprise performing internationally. In France, we embraced, I guess, after the presidency of Mr. Mitterrand, capitalism. And a lot of those companies sold themselves completely. And today, the situation in France, economically, industries, has weakened dramatically. Meanwhile, in Germany, you saw a very different model. And maybe it's because they're much more inclusive. It's not only about shareholders management, it's also about unions. In every company in Germany above 250 employees, you have a working council. And they push back a little bit on this selling themselves. So that's why they're thriving. They have currently other issues, which is to reinvent themselves industrially as a fourth or third generation. So that's one case. The second case, you have people a little bit atypical who can say no or yes. It's a journey. You meet owners, managers of companies. You need to build trust. And in this case, you can do the journey together. Very often, they believe in their business. They want to take care of their business. They cannot necessarily do it because they don't have the legacy coming in or the means. So they find a partner, which could be, investment group with certain social aspiration, or even in some cases, it's a state agency or investment fund from a country. And those people, they tag along, they take a minority stake or even majority stake, but they want to develop the business long-term because they have a mission. They see that long-term is key. And it takes time. It's a journey. You need to build trust with those people. They feel that their values are embodied and power will be protected. And it takes people. You sit with them, you spend time. It takes years very often to build this type of trust and relationship. And once it's there, then you do the journey together, and it's very successful, and you implement governance. I think it's not one model or two model. Every company is different. You have different pool of employees, managers, at different age as well. So it's really like almost an art. It's a case-per-case basis because those companies, they're alive, they have a soul, and you try to protect it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perovic, if I may continue now and kind of attach to this answer now, from your perspective, what is in fact the biggest challenge when we talk about a lifespan of a family business and its future survival and development? Is it finances? Is it corporate management? Is it family relationships? Is it constitution, family constitution? All of those aspects I know you need to take in consideration when you advise your clients on entering into family business and restructuring. What do you focus, or do you focus on all of those?
You have to focus on all of those. It's a parallel process. It's parallel programming of both family business and the actual business, if we can call it that way, because it's a circle that it's any decision on the side of the family on what they want to focus on just goes back and circle into the business side of it. The most challenging part is dividing the two, because in majority cases here, when we're talking in this region, the family owner, in a sense, or the father of the family is a business owner, and trying to divide him into the two separate mind brains, or to put different hats on his head into the discussion is the key challenge of the discussion. The other thing is trying to find additional help. That's the most challenging part, because when it comes to the constitutions and when it comes to the documentation, we're already in some way there. To enter into the journey is the most difficult part. And the case that when we're talking about this region, what we find the most challenging is a bit of macho culture. Usually you would have peers coming to you and talking openly and discussing things and sharing the experience. Here in this region, Slovenia the least, but the Balkan region more and more, we're just too macho to do it. And we're too macho to do it. And the culture is just too strong to accept and to start talking about these topics, because we're just too strong of a personnel.
And is it harder in observing our region and comparing it to your projects in other regions in the family business sector? What else do you see as a challenge in our region, and what can we learn, again, like from the examples of other regions when we're going through this large transformation now, like in the 70s in Germany?
Well, I would love to say that there's been plenty of successful cases of transformation of a long-term sustainable family business. There's been a transformation with an exit. That is clear. We've managed to come to the point where family understands that there is no way that they can transform the business or they have what they need for a sustainable long-term business. And what happens is the identification that there is no second tier, and then the transformation into the exit and the successful exit, which is a better version than the long term. But unfortunately, we hadn't come to the successful project yet, and we've seen one big failure of a possible transformation in the family business in Slovenian southern border or in Croatia just a couple of years ago that went bad. So it hadn't been a sustainable transformation as of yet. Transformation of the business to bring it to the point that it's sellable or to exit successfully, yes. Transformation in a sense to make it stick, to truly make it happen, we hadn't seen that yet. And I think it comes down to the mentality of the managers and the founders here. They're still not able to surpass that point where they would feel comfortable to share the trust with somebody else and to start building trustful relationships rather than predominantly mistrustful.
Okay, thank you very much. Micha, will there be, this is practically third, fourth, fifth generation of Src? Hopefully, of course, as a family business. I know Src will be around, but will it be a family business, third, fourth, fifth generation? Again, IT sector is very specific. And when is that point when you decide to sell from your perspective? I'm not saying don't announce it, but when will it be?
I'll share a story which is quite fresh, and it was not many people know about it, but since it's over, I don't mind sharing it. So I've had and I can walk you through my train of thought as it was happening. So obviously right now is a great time to sell a company, and there's a number of funds, scouting the market and pursuing all types of opportunities. So one of those actually several of those, but one of those actually approached us in a way that piqued my interest. So, but obviously, so their business model is they take over the whole business and you keep running it. So they keep you running it, but they take over 100% of the equity. So I had a conversation with them, and they're like, listen, just go through this process with us, and then at the end of the process, you decide whether you want to pursue it or not. So I thought, why not? So, but when we came to discussing the numbers, the valuation, what struck me was I wasn't really interested in selling at this point, but I gave them a number and I asked them, listen, tell me what type of a company you'd be willing to pay, X millions of euros for. And they're like, okay, share us your numbers and we'll get back to you. So they got back to me after about a month with some supplemental questions. And then after 6 weeks, we got an offer that was 1 million above asking price. I was like, really? I'm like, now what? I thought I was shooting, punching way above my weight, and then I'm like, what do I do now? So then it was a time to talk to my father, to my mom, dad, obviously, my wife, the team in the company. And then, then you realize that it's not, at least for me, it's not a rational decision. And I may regret it one day, but, throughout these last 8 years of, toil, sweat, and tears, I think my DNA intertwined with the DNA of the company, or maybe I'm just not ready to let go yet, So, although I do think that it makes sense to, connect, also maybe even to merge or to bring in other people, to bring in other expertise. But this was so quick and so finite, it really caught me off guard. And I decided that I'm going to keep on pushing.
Well, you have this privilege to do that now, but what would trigger your decision to seek financial investment? I'm not saying sell the company. I'm saying let somebody come in because you need the capital to grow, to go regional. Is it globalization? Because a lot of family-owned businesses stay at home. They don't want to go global. They just can't. They're a different business model. When will that moment come in?
It might be here because, I mean, we do have one financial investor, a small one, but I believe that they bring the needed discipline because as soon as you need to report to a third party, it makes you more disciplined. You have schedules, you have a certain type of reports that obviously, I mean, you need to tell people where they invested their money and how it's doing. So I'm quite open to this. And, you know, when the time comes, we'll do it.
Gregory, you're looking for business opportunities, investment opportunities in the region, as we discussed yesterday, including family-owned businesses such as Srt, such as Micha's business. How do you approach them now? What is your offer? What is the motivator to get them to listen to you? As he said, they try to. How do you approach that? You're a very seasoned, very experienced person in company.
It takes time. You need to take the time to visit those companies, understand what they're doing, the people behind it, what's their vision, and try to engage with them if there is commonalities. I mean, us, we're not running a private equity group, so for us, it's very important that there is a shared vision, a chemistry between the people, because we intend to do a long-term journey with them. So it takes time. You just pick up, your bag and you go meet, sometimes in very remote places, and you meet exceptional people, very driven people, interesting people, in some cases less, but it's part of the journey. It's very exciting. And I think it's very educational for oneself as well, because then you see different people, you see different environment, and then you think it through a little more. But in the end, it's about the people.
Do you see opportunities in this area? You've been searching now. Do you see? I'm not saying concrete, but generally.
Sure. In the region, we've been looking, I mean, with our partners and our colleagues here for a couple of years. I think we're a little bit victim of what you describe. It's a huge bubble in terms of asset pricing, valorization of company, which defies gravity and doesn't make sense. So people, very often you find situations where those owners, entrepreneurs, who don't have a legacy to take over, they just want to monetize, and they think they're sitting on a gold mine. So it's very difficult to engage with those people until there is a reality check. So there you need to wait. I think you can put everything in a box. Models, valorization, financing, export. In the end, it's about the people. And in Slovenia, you have very good companies, very crafty, innovative, in different areas. Like Pipistrel, I'm very impressed. I'm a pilot also. It's super cool. And it's a small company, started with not much, very innovative, very courageous people. They could do more internationally in terms of export, being regional champions. But you need the people to do that. And if you want to open international markets, you need reliable people who speak the language. It takes time. Everything takes time. And I think in our current environment, people want immediate results. And it doesn't exist. You cannot go faster than the music. To build a business, a network of distribution internationally, it takes time and it takes people. It's not about the money, it's about the people, the right people.
Right, and people, of course, and Micha, I think you will agree, sometimes here in Slovenia, the pool is, of course, not as large as there is in larger countries or more developed economies, so people must also come from abroad. But Tomislav, I mean, I'm sorry.
Just a comment, apologies
continue.
on this. Yes, Slovenia is a smaller country, but actually I think it's your strength. Because a smaller country, people talk easier. You can get around the table, agree to something for the best interest of everyone. Think about Switzerland. Switzerland, it's a small country, and that's their strength. They can discuss, you need to go see a representative, tax office, so you just walk outside the door. And that's a strength, because you can react much faster and have several stakeholders.
So Mr. Perovic, I'm sorry, just to attach to this, and then Michael, I'll come to you. Attaching to what we just heard now is then family-owned business model, which is very popular or active in Slovenia. Is that the right model? Is that the optimal model for our economy looking forward? Our economy as much as you know it and the regional one. For all the reasons
I
heard
don't
now.
I don't think there is a general answer to it. And I think that family business model is going to change with the new generation of businesses, because we're kind of focused on the industrial family business rather than a digital family business. And I think that the merger of two will need to happen at some point in time. That's going to bring a new dynamics to the family. I think that Slovenia, geographically, yes, the family business model works. It proved to work. Whether it needs to be challenged, I would think yes. Modified, whether it's an answer, I wouldn't go that far. I can't say. I would need to have a second thought about it. But I think that the family business needs to redevelop undoubtedly and continue to develop, because family business is not a set of rules. It's not a code of conduct that you once set and you don't change it through time. People change, businesses change dramatically. We're now into the revolution of business, so talking about what the best family model is going to be, it's a difficult one.
All right, thank you, but Micha, maybe you can elaborate on that.
If the family
both of those,
business model is...
Not just the business model from your perspective.
So it depends on how you define a family. For example, when I started my own company with Cameron in the UK, that was before joining here, I consider him family. If it's a tight group of people who aren't necessarily related by blood, I think what's important is that the people who start the company initially, that they're bound very closely together, either by a set of values, is it friendship, it can be blood. So I always think that companies that will be run by people who get along together and share compatible skill sets, that will always be the way to go forward.
That, please.
I think.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Wilder, if you can also comment on that, and then I think we'll go to the next keynote address.
Yeah, super. I'll be quick. I think I've wrestled with this question a lot, and I wonder with the globalization that's happened and the size of multinational companies and the amount of equity that's available in both public and private markets, that if the true traditional family business model will continue to exist, this multi-generational Mittelstand type company, I think it will evolve, that the pace of change is so fast that it will become normal that the founders will be bringing in partners to allow innovation to happen, to allow risk-taking to happen and growth to happen, to be able to compete in a flat world that we're in today. I think it's a romantic idea of the multi-generational business, but I question how easy that is to do in the future.
Harder than it was in the 20th century, and a lot of those family businesses did survive 100 and more years. The 21st century brings a lot of challenges. Now, I will go to our next. Nevenka is smiling already because she knows it's going to be her. I would like to invite Mrs. Nevenka Črešnar-Perger of MP Consulting, because she's the moderator of the next panel. And we would like to kind of connect our discussion on family-owned businesses, also investment opportunities and challenges, with the discussion of our next panel. Just maybe, Nevenka, a little bit elaboration from your side on what we heard and what we can expect from your roundtable here in about half an hour, please.
Thank you, Jaka, and thank you to all of you for a very elaborate presentation of what is going on in the family business. Definitely for Slovenia family business, as Minister stated in the beginning, 83% of Slovenian companies are owned by families, so it's very, very important. And I believe we are facing the time when the successions are going to happen. And Ivan Žerko, Mika's father, is happy to have a great son who was able to take over. But not all family owners or fathers have that luck. and on the other side, not necessarily that family owners or daughters and sons are willing or interested to take over. So what is the solution? Slovenian family businesses are, I would say, pretty small, at least the majority, and maybe not the best organized. So they're not so attractive for the foreign investors at that stage. But I think we have a very good solution in Slovenia. Finally, lately there were 2 funds established to enter SMEs or family-owned businesses, and I wish them luck, Kaja Finance and Generali, or Kadek Skladi before that. I think these 2 funds could present kind of interim solution for those family businesses. They can bring, you know, better corporate governance, better organization, better people to expand the sales, and then they don't usually take the majority, so they want the family businesses, family owners to stay in. So family owners, if you need help, these are 2 funds. And then they can sell further. But what I missed in today's discussion is the 3rd topic, which is how to expand those family businesses broader, outbound, to invest in the region or even further. This is one of the topics that we will discuss in the next roundtable with my very distinguished guests, some investors, some lawyers, and also Minister of Finance will join the roundtable with the speech in the beginning. At the end of this discussion, he will comment what are the ideas of the investors. So you're most welcome to join us. Thank you, Aka.
Thank you very much, Nevenka. We sure needed to leave some topics also for our panel, so I think it's going to be, I believe it's going to be very interesting also to stay here longer. Is there any question? We have maybe time for one few minutes, or any remarks or any comments on what we heard on family-owned businesses and the challenges from the audience. I know there's a lot of us, probably one will raise a hand. Anybody? Anybody? Oh, there is a hand right there. Okay, I knew somebody's gonna raise one. Right there. Can you raise it again, sir? Thank you. If you can just stand up so we see you and introduce yourself. Thank you so much.
Hello? Yep. Everyone seems to talk about the transition being stepping out of the business and external investment coming in. Where do you stand on expanding a family business by perhaps acquiring other family businesses and becoming acquisitive and growing as that business model?
Who would you like to ask that question, or particularly, or who would like to answer?
Good question. Maybe Mr. Weiler or Micha.
Maybe let's start with you, Micha.
Thank you. So, honestly, we were not in a position to be taking over any businesses in the last 8 years. So, what you propose is very interesting, and actually, in the past, our company has done so. So, we've bought 3 companies. Well, we bought 2 companies. 2 we've successfully integrated, and 1 was a very, very sad story. And then the 4th one didn't happen, and was also a family business in Macedonia that actually, in the end, had we gone down that path, we would have been subjected to fraud. So, you know, you need to be careful, and you need to be reliant on external experts in the field, because this is not actually your core capability. So yes, I mean, obviously, this is also one of the paths to grow, but you need a really solid base. So I know my father was much more adventurous than I am also in using leverage when expanding the business. So when I had to pay it all back, now I'm probably much more conservative than he is, although I was making fun of his conservatism when I was younger. So, yeah.
I would say the new generation is going to be opposite, but I guess things do change. Any other question for one last minute? If not, I would like to thank our panel for being with us, and I think an applause is well deserved. Thank you very much, guys, for an interesting discussion, and have a great conference, and see you at the next panel. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for joining us at the AmCham Business Breakfast. You are now kindly invited to grab a cup of coffee. Enjoy. At 11:30, welcome back to the panel Inside the Investor's Mind.